Give her some more encouragement.
Amen. Baruch Hashem. It's a pleasure and it's a blessing to be here with all of you, enjoying Shabbat and just dedicating this beautiful day to Him. And Jaylene, you touched me very much with that beautiful song. You made me cry, and I pray that all of you were touched by this amazing song. Thank you, Jackie, for that beautiful testimony. And this only teaches us that God is always, if we rely on Him and we just trust Him, He delivers us and He's with us and He just have a relationship with us. And if you just learn to do that, you're not alone. And even when you're by yourself, you will never be alone because He will be with each one of you, with me, with you, with your family. Amen to that. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Jaylene. My sermon is titled Destined One. Parsha Chayei Sarah teaches us a lot of good things. It's so funny that it's not funny, but it's so interesting that it starts with Chayei Sarah, the life of Sarah. And it tells us here, Sarah lived to be 100 years, 27 years, and 7 years. 127 years old. The Torah is specific. It doesn't say it's 127 years old, even though the Bibles will say 127 years old. But the Torah in the Hebrew will say 120 and 7 years. These passages teaches us that what kind of woman Sarah was. The years of Sarah's lifetime all were equal for the good. She was 100, she was 20, and she was 7. Most people pass from one stage of their life to the next, leaving the previous stage behind, perhaps taking with them some of fond memories. Each one of these ages, 120 and 7, have something unique about it. The 7-year-old has innocence. The 20-year-old has strength. The 100-year-old has wisdom. The secret of the greatness of Sarah was that through her entire life, he was 100, she was 20, and she was 7. All of Sarah's years were equal. At every point in her life, she remained the same. She was always as innocent as a 7-year-old, with the strength and determination and idealism of a 20 years old, and always possessed the wisdom of a 100-year-old woman. Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, also known as Hebron, in the land of the Canaan. Abraham mourned and wept for Sarah. Abraham bought a piece of land to bury her dead for 400 silver shekels of the way accepted among the merchants, around 10 pounds. Then Abraham buried Sarah, his wife, in the cave of the field of Machpelah by Mamre, also known as Hebron in the land of Canaan. Abraham had purchased the field and its cave from the sons of Het as a burial site, which would belong to him. Later on, we learn that in the same burial site, we have Isaac and Rebekah and Jacob and Leah. And the sages commented that also Adam and Eve were in that same cave. We don't know. Abraham is old, and he asked his servant Eliezer to go back to his homeland to find a wife for his son Isaac. Abraham and his wife Sarah were one. He was her destined one. She was his destined one. Once she dies, Abraham was by himself. Half of him was gone. Abraham knows that he cannot continue this work by himself, but he has to pass it to his son Isaac. God told him, I will make my covenant with you through Isaac. So the moment that Sarah dies, is gone. He doesn't have that soulmate, that beshir, that other half that is so important in each one of our lives. So Abraham knows very well that he has to choose a wife for his son, but he doesn't want a woman from the Canaanites. She wants the perfect wife, the wife that will be able to fulfill the role and work along with his son Isaac. the same way that Sarah did. They made many mistakes. You read the scriptures when we read from, when Abraham had the call from God and moved out and he went with Sarah and his nephew and all the stories. Who will do this nowadays? That you receive a call from God and God tells you, leave everything behind, pack and move. Go to Israel right now. Leave your job, take your kids out of school, whatever, and go to Israel. It is a tough decision. And that, we see the obedience here of Abraham, and you see it through it. And his wife was with him as one. They make decisions, they move, they go, they travel, they did, they decide. Whatever they did it together. And this is a profound message here. Then Eliezer goes on his trip looking for this young woman that soon will embrace the calling and becoming one of our matriarchs, Isaac's destined one. Moreover, right here, we learn about the first recorded shidduch, matchmaking in history, Genesis 24. Please keep in mind that Abraham gave Eliezer specific instructions to choose a woman from Abraham's own tribe. Eliezer traveled to his master's homeland to fulfill Abraham's wishes, arriving at a well. Note that the distance between Hebron and Haran is approximately 468 miles. Picture, go back in time. No cars, no trains, no buses, by camel. So it was more or less 17, 18 days journey. You cannot go to a restaurant and go, okay, let's stop here, let us eat, let's have lunch, let me have a soda. You need to pack all the food, all the provisions, the water, and everything that you need to go on that trip. After a short prayer to God for guidance, describing how a virtuous woman might act towards a traveling stranger at the well, Rebecca appeared. And she did everything that Eliezer described. Exactly how with Jackie mentioned it in her relationship, in her mini drash, how she wanted that perfect one to be. She didn't ask for good looks. She didn't ask to have a huge bank account. She asked with a humble heart, if this is the man that you want in my life, give it to me. He has to do this because God knows best. We know that. So here is Rebecca offering water to Eliezer, his men, his 10 camels. And you say, okay, Rebecca, bring a bucket of water, give it to Eliezer, give it to the camels. Just so you have an understanding, this is a young girl. One fully grown camel can drink up to 53 gallons of water in 3 minutes. 53 gallons of water in 3 minutes. Rebecca, more or less, the sages teaches us that Rebecca probably was around 14 to 16 years old. We can say that she had the beauty of Sarah. When she was set, she had the beauty of Sarah and she had the strength of Sarah, 7 and 20 years old. Rebecca had all these qualities. She was beautiful, strong, compassionate, and a servant. Things that you don't see so often in the women's nowadays. And the women's right nowadays, what do you see? If they're beautiful, they know that they're beautiful and they're arrogant. If they're not beautiful, they're a servant. But then the other kids, they don't look at her like, oh, you know what? She's a good girl. She's a servant. She's a doer. So Eliezer then went with Rebecca to her family. By the way, many of these gifts that Rebecca had, we as women, we should pray to have those gifts too. Pray for them. Pray for them. Many times I battle with it myself. And sometimes, like you said, you have a good angel and a bad angel, and the good angel says, oh, be good, do good things, be. And then the bad angel tells you, oh no, what are you going to do it? Don't do it. Be nasty, be this. No, and it's a battle within you. Learn to listen to the voice of God. Learn to listen to that good angel that is on your right side. And learn to just have a connection and try to do the best in every aspect. Let's try to be women. That we are not only beautiful, that we are strong, that we're compassionate, and that we're servant all at the same time, like our matriarch Rebecca. Eliezer then went with Rebecca to her family and appealed to them for permission to take Rebecca back to his master Isaac as his wife. However, when Eliezer proposes to take Rebecca back to Isaac in Canaan, her family wanted Rebecca to stay with them for a few days, more or less a couple of weeks, a month. And Eliezer gets anxious. No. Everything came true, like Jackie's drash. Ricardo gave her the white lilies. Ricardo gave her the sneaker. Okay, I'm giving you here, right there. Everything that you asked for is there. So now move forward. Don't be stuck without blessing. Move forward. Do it. So Rebecca's family says, let's ask Rebecca. She wants to go. She's free to go. So once this permission was granted, Rebecca joined Eliezer on the road home to Isaac. This is taken as an instruction that Jewish parents to weigh their child's opinion in the balance during an arranged marriage. Regardless of whether proper procedure is followed, this is not to the end of the decision. It is believed by religious Jews that the final say belongs to God, who may have different plans. By the way, it is a great mitzvah, it's a good deed, finding a shidduch, or a match for someone. You have seen Rabbi Ben many times, playing around, but it's a blessing. It's a blessing by itself. If you see two people that are compatible, why not? Make the effort. This is a Jewish call. This is a mitzvah. If you see somebody that match with somebody that have the same, they can complement each other. Why not? Introduce them. It seems most of you remember the movie from Matchmaking. Who has seen Fiddler on the Roof? If you have not watched it, it's one of those amazing old movies that have two parts. And the ladies here, always the single ladies are singing, matchmaker, matchmaker, make me a match, find me a find, catch me a catch, matchmaker, matchmaker, look through you book and make me the perfect match. Why are we praying for the perfect person? Because once you're married, you're married. At least in the believing world. In Judaism, a person with a special talent for matchmaking is referred as a shadchanit for a woman and shadchan for a man. But it's not a field reserved only to professionals. Everyone in our community is supposed to be keeping an eye for potential matches. It is such a serious duty that even the great rabbis are known for keeping notes concerning potential mates for the purpose of making matches. It may be true that opposites attract, but they don't stick together very well. A successful shadchan or shadchanit looks for mutual compatibility. He or she tries to match people on the basis of personality, disposition, and character, as well as watching for similar family backgrounds, values, social and economic standing. It is not an easy job, but it's an important one. The responsibility of making matches is so important and so difficult that the sages of Israel have claimed that God himself has been occupied with the matter ever since creation. In the smaller world of Messianic Judaism, every person needs to help with matchmaking. I remember when my husband and I were introduced for the first time. Yes, there were fireworks. He always mentioned it. Whoever had met the rabbi for a while, he always said that we met and there were fireworks. So, yes, there were. But I just went to meet somebody, we're going to have dinner, and that's it. And soon after, I was eating his food from his plate. And let me tell you, there was no love at first sight. It wasn't. We just went out, and actually my husband, asked me again, and I told him, plain and simple, listen, I'm not ready for a serious relationship. I just, let's go out as friends, let's, go out, whatever, but I'm not ready. Anyway, God had different plans. A month later, we were dating, and the rest is history. All the good stuff came after, and we've been together for almost 22 years. Wow. So, and it hasn't been easy. It hasn't been easy. It has had ups and downs, and Roma in the back laughing. It hasn't been easy. But it is a commitment. You don't marry somebody thinking if it works, fine. If it doesn't work, too bad. It's a commitment, and we can laugh right now, but we have had very sad moments together, terrible moments. But we have had the most happiest moments together as well. God chose him for me, and he had a reason. Nowadays, when I see my life and I think, oh, geez, we have gone through a lot together. But then I see this beautiful show. And God put us together for a reason. Otherwise, KHD probably wouldn't be here. And if it was here, probably it wouldn't be the same. Amen. Who knows? But God knew best. He knows best. Sure does. And the most important thing, I never thought that one day perhaps God will bless me to be a mother. And he did. He gave us the most beautiful son that sometimes, trust me, I have not the patience, and God somehow gives me the patience. But he gave us our Daniel, who just fills our life with joy. And if you marry and you have children, you know that things are not easy all the time. Those kids, those teenagers, those young kids, they give you a hard time. But you wouldn't change anything. Kids, if you are here, your parents would love you with their heart, with their life. And when I had my son, it was the only moment that I was able to understand my mother's love for me. The only time that I could understand it. Even when sometimes I say things that are not so kosher to her, it hurts me. And I feel guilty after I have said something, even if I'm right. Just the fact that she's my mother or my father, I feel, and so coming back to my sermon, God always is right. Trusting him. Everything that you do not rely on your own understanding. And when you don't know what to do, put it before him. Put it before him, because he's real. When we learn to have a relationship with him, he is real. He does. He changes. He fixes. He brings down, but he elevates again. Like the song says, I'm breathing in, I'm breathing out. I was in the grave, but God, you called me out. So God takes you out of that grave and gives you life. And when you establish that relationship, it's powerful. And it's just, it has no words, it has no description. You know that. When I met my husband, I was not looking at my famous list. Everybody, ladies and men, you have somebody, and actually parents too. You have somebody that you want to marry. It has to be blonde, it has to be a nice figure, it has to be, do sports, name it. It has to have a beautiful face, or black hair, or blue eyes, or a nice figure. Ain't happening. If you are looking for that perfect person, that perfect man, and that perfect woman, you are going to fail. And search for the perfect person? God made the perfect match for Abraham and Sarah. God made the perfect match for Isaac and Rebekah. God made the perfect match for Jackie and Ricardo, for Erika and Brian. He can make the perfect match for you. He made the perfect match for my husband and I. Even there are times when we were going down a road that I said, oh, yeah, this is the perfect match. But then you see and you laugh about things and you say, yeah, God knows best, and He gave us, all this for a reason. He has always a reason and a purpose. I do believe He did the same for us, and with all the couples here that are in this room. And we just need to trust Him. Always remind yourself, God knows best. In our culture, we believe that a person should marry whoever he or she falls in love with. Oh, I like him. We have a connection. He's cute. This is a bad plan. Sorry. It is possible to fall in love with the wrong person, and it is possible to fall in love with many people, many wrong ones. Falling in love is a terrible criteria upon which you can base your marriage on. It would have been easy for Isaac to fall in love with any Canaanite girl. They were right there. Why searching, going 400, 500 miles away to look for a woman? There were plenty beautiful women. Why not? Because Abraham wouldn't allow it. He knew already. They're not compatible. I'm following the God that called me. This God. They're following other gods. Right there and then. Wrong. Abraham placed clear and specific limits around Isaac's potential mate. May she be the one who you have appointed for your servant Isaac. Genesis 24:14. Abraham's servant Eliezer was sent to find a wife for Isaac. He prayed that God would indicate which woman he had appointed for Isaac to marry. God miraculously singled out Rebekah. Genesis 24:67 says, Then Isaac brought her into his mother Sarah's tent, and he took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. Thus Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. Notice the order. Isaac took Rebekah, she became his wife, and he loved her. If you already married, love your wife. Ladies, love your husband. You already married. Learn to love one another. This seems backward to us. We would expect the opposite in our culture. We believe that a person should marry whomever she or he falls in love with. Nevertheless, falling in love is a terrible criteria upon which to base a marriage. What should a marriage be based upon? Isaac took his bride into his mother's tent. All this time, Sarah's tent had been empty, symbolizing the absence of the Ashes Hile, a virtuous wife. A woman of valor who can find, for her price is far above from rubies. Mishlei Shlomo, Proverbs of Solomon 31:10. The Torah tells us that Isaac has been in mourning with his mother. He keenly felt her absence. Isaac taking his bride into Sarah's tent symbolizes Rebekah stepping into Sarah's role as a matriarch over the house of Abraham. In the language of the rabbis, Rebekah became the house of Isaac. If you are married, if you're a man, your wife is your house. Brian, Erika is your house. Javier, Jackie is your house. Carlos, Mary is your house. Song Lee, Mignon is your house. And all of you, whoever here is married, Ricardo, Jackie is your house. Rabbi Ben, I'm your house. But anyway.
Thank God I live in an apartment.
Later we're recounting the story of this encounter with Rebekah to her family. They had to admit The Maharat come from the Lord, Genesis 24:50. By all appearances, God had appointed Rebekah to be the wife of Isaac. This teaches us that God appoints each person a spouse, your destined one. Some people call this appointed person a soulmate. How do you know when you have found your soulmate? And what exactly is a soulmate? The idea is that each individual has one other person somewhere out there. If you're single, look around. Look around if you're single, if you're looking for that soulmate. This is already preordained in heaven by God. A person's soulmate is the ideal complement to fulfill his or her physical, spiritual, and psychological needs. Soulmates are like two halves of the same soul. And if you marry the wrong person, you will never be truly happy because you miss your soulmate. But this is not a biblical idea. The search for a soulmate sounds romantic, but how do you know if the one you are with is really your soulmate? Isn't it possible that you miss your true soulmate or might still encounter him or her? The soulmate concept is a foolish idea that ultimately discourages people from getting married because they fear that a prospective match might not be their soulmate. For people already married, the soulmate concept can lead to discontentment and uncertainty. The soulmate idea exists in Judaism. Does exist in Judaism. It was probably born from a misunderstanding of the Jewish concept of the soulmate. Among Yiddish-speaking Jews, the term for soulmate is a basher. Basher is a Yiddish word that means destined. A person's ideal spouse is called the destined one. Basher is for a female, basher is for a male. Consider how this is different from the romantic soulmate concept. So, I remember where our little Daniel was born. I call her sometimes our stinker. And as he was so little, I remember that I prayed for his wife. And everybody, I thought a lot of people say, oh my gosh, she's just a baby, you praying for a wife. And I was praying for his right basherte. Because I want Daniel, as I'm raising him in a Messianic Jewish home, to have a strong foundation. And I was praying for this girl, and actually he called me crazy, but the same year we had 3 other Messianic girls were born the same year. I said, oh, okay, these ladies. But it was a blessing. I said, I pray for my son, and always I pray that may God guide you to the right and perfect woman for you. That you will accomplish her and she will accomplish you. And that you hand on hand work. Not for you to step on her, not for you to treat her like she's best than you, but for you two to work together as one. So anyway, after that, all of the ladies, they said, wow, I never thought about it. Let me pray for it. Always pray for your children. Always pray that God will send that perfect person that accomplish your child. Do you remember, I don't know if you have seen this film, A Stranger Among Us. If you have not watched it, it's a very interesting movie with Melanie Griffith. She plays an undercover police officer staying with an Orthodox rabbi's family in Brooklyn. While investigating a crime, at the end of the film, Officer Levine, a young man on the force in her prison, whom she has been dating back on and off, asks her, hey, let's go for a couple of weeks to Aruba. She thanks him for the invitation, but says no. He asks, why not? And she says, because I'm waiting for my shirt. What's that? She tells him, ask your rabbi. You cannot seek your destined one because you will not know if you are destined to be together until you marry each other. If a man and a woman bases of his marriage merely on love, it is doomed from the start. Feelings are unpredictable. They rise and fall. They come and go. They come and go. Marriage must not be based upon love. Love must be based upon marriage. So again, if you are already married, learn to love your spouse. With all the good, the bad, and the ugly. Learn to love them. So, how we will find our bashert? Will it be based on attraction alone? Paul warns us in 2 Corinthians 6:14 not to be unequally yoked with unbelievers, he says. Do not yoke yourselves together in a team with unbelievers. For how can righteousness and lowliness be partners? What fellowship does light have with darkness? Let God alone choose for us our bashert, our destined one. If you are single, look around. Your perfect match probably is closer than you think. Can be in the shul, can be at your job, can be in your neighborhood, can be around you. Please stop with the superficial stuff. But one day it will be gone. Please pray and think with bigger eyes. Why bigger eyes? Because many times stuff and even our eyes can deceive us. But when we look at someone with bigger eyes, open your eyes. When we look at someone with bigger eyes, we start looking into the depth of what we seek, what we're looking for. Perhaps you have seen this movie, Shallow Hal.
Yes.
Oh, I love the Shallow Hal. The story revolves around Hal, Jack Black, who taking his dying father's advice, dates only the embodiments of female physical perfection. But that all changes after Hal has an unexpected run-in with self-guru Tony Robbins. Intrigued by Hal's shallowness, Robbins hypnotizes him into seeing the beauty that exists even in the least physical appealing women. It's a very good movie, funny and cute movie. So if you don't have anything to do tomorrow, rent it and watch it. Subsequently, he falls in love with Rosemary, Whitney Paltrow, a woman who appears to him to look slender and beautiful due to her kind, generous nature, but is actually obese. At first, like in my family will call it, gorgeous. She was gorgeous. At first, she accuses him of feeling childish, of being childish, because she thinks he is pretending to date her, but later realizes that his feelings are genuine. Even though this is just a movie, we can go back and refer to what I just mentioned when you're looking for someone, when you're looking for somebody with a bigger eyes. You know, this is just an example of a movie. He falls in love with the beauty of the person, not the physical beauty. We start looking into the right beauty and find our destined one. If you are married, enjoy your perfect bashert, your destined one. Look at your husband right now if you're sitting next to him, or look at your wife. This is why the Torah says a man is to leave his father and mother and stick with his wife, and they are to be one. Genesis 2:24. The verse is so important that Yeshua quotes it in Matthew 19 and Mark 10. Additionally, Paul quotes the same verse in Ephesians 5:31, showing that the marriage maxim of Torah also applies to each of us individually. Paul continues in Ephesians 5:33 saying, "Let each man love his wife as he does himself, and see that the wife respect her husband." Let me read that again. Let each man love his wife as he does himself, and see that the wife respects her husband. Husband, please don't make your wife cry. Our Father teaches us that God counts all her tears. And wife, remember this. We can get more with honey than with vinegar. Proven. It works every time. When I'm trying to be rude with my husband, it ain't working. But if I go hug him and kiss him and I say, honey, please do it for me. You're the best husband in the entire world. Hey, he just said, okay, honey, that's okay. It works every time. And it's true. You can get more with honey than with vinegar. Sometimes we forget, but it does work. A man wants to be loved. A man wants to feel that we care for him. And husbands, just treat your queen like she deserves to be treated. Well, my husband made so many points this past weekend. We have family coming, right? And my mother-in-law was so generous in lending us the apartment next door. She has 2 apartments, so my nieces, nephews, their friends, they stay over. So we had sheets and towels, and so I cleaned up a lot of stuff. I brought food, whatever, back to our apartment. And then I said to my husband, oh my gosh, I haven't done it. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I'll do it tomorrow. Please call your mom. I'll do it tomorrow. And then my mother-in-law says, I'm planning to use the apartment for tomorrow. Somebody else coming. I'm like, oh my gosh. My husband says to me, I'll do it. So I called him back the next, I went to work. And I called him late. I said, honey, just to remind you, did you go upstairs to wash those sheets? And he's like, forget it. Everything is done. I washed that. I washed my mother's clothes. I washed the towels. I made the bed. He did everything. And I said, wow. I didn't even have to remind him. So I owe him big time. And he did it. Always strive. Always look forward. Always just look. If you have your husband, if you have a wife here, just try to bring and call and have shalom bayit. Shalom bayit means peace in the home. Shalom bayit is the Jewish concept of domestic harmony and good relations between spouses. Think twice. Don't act just to act. Think before you say something. Think before, because your actions, don't fall asleep here, please wake up. Your actions will make a difference. Will make a complete difference. Whatever you do with your spouse, it will make a complete difference. Moreover, this sanctity of the marital union reminds the husband and wife to express their holiness through marriage and to build a home based on mutual love, respect, and kindness. Again, for my single friends, let God alone choose us. Choose for us. Trust in God. Don't run trying to find the perfect person. God already has the perfect person for you. You just need to trust and be willing. Don't follow the list. Our Parsha, our Destined one, he who created the world and gave us his only son Yeshua for our atonement, who chose Sarah for Abraham and Rebekah for Isaac, can easily bring us to our true Parsha. In the Fiddler on the Roof movie, there is a Shabbat prayer for the young daughters. When you watch this movie, why is so this is all about women? Because this guy has how many daughters? 5 daughters? 5, 6 daughters. And he doesn't have any boys, so he's the father. He has to schlep and work and do all the things that he needs to do to provide for his family. So I would like to end my sermon with that blessing. Rabbi, you want to help me here?
May the Lord protect and defend you. May he always shield you from shame. May you come to be in Israel a shining name. May you be like Ruth and like Esther, May you be deserving of praise. Strengthen them, O Lord, and keep them from the stranger's ways. May God bless you and grant you long life.
May the Lord fulfill our Shabbat's break for you.
May God make you good mothers and wives.
May He send you husbands who will care for you.
May the Lord protect and defend you. May the Lord preserve you from pain. Favor them, O Lord, with happiness and peace. Oh, hear our Shabbat prayer. Amen.
Amen. And remember, let God alone choose for us our Bashir, our destined one. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.